heading for that sentence. Tat tvameva tvameva tat. You will see how to get there. Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavataye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karne Vishnunyama Devaha Bhadram Pashi Makshabhir Yajatraha Sthirairangai Shuštuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti nastakshyo arishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Upadesha is concluded by saying Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Sampashyan Paramam Brahma Yati Nanyena Hetuna. No other means for gaining this knowledge. Having completed this, why does Brahmaji continue? That way one could even say, it's Brahmaji could have simply said Tattvamasi, Tvameva Tat, and left it there. Because to learn this, to gain this knowledge, one of the reasons why not many people come to this knowledge, because very confusing, because so contrary to what we know. Tvameva, Tvameva Tat, you're saying you're everything. I can't for the life of me figure out how I'm everything. For that, there is a certain minimum adhikaritvam required. First and foremost, that strong desire to know. The jignasa must be there. I want to know what this is. I want to know what is moksha. That means the individual must have had some exposure. Otherwise, how are we ever going to say, well, I want to know what is moksha? That exposure may have been now, it may have been previously. But some exposure must have been there. All of us can claim that. The fact that I come to do Shravanam consistently is a very strong indication that there has been before this some amount of exposure. Therefore, I know there is something called moksha. There is something which is to be known. And then there is something which, when known, It is as though you know everything. There is only one such thing. Anything else, any other knowledge, you can never say, I know. You have to add something. I know Sanskritam. That also I don't know, because there is no end to that knowing Sanskritam. On and on and on, you can keep going. The more you learn, the more you understand how much more there is to know. Any subject. So, the person who does very deep study of any subject, his knowledge gets narrower and narrower and narrower and deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more he knows how much he doesn't know. That is knowledge. Is there a knowledge which, when I know, I feel I know everything? That's probably a wrong statement. I feel I know everything, lots of people say. I think I know everything. Obviously, that's not correct. And to know, one must have that very strong desire to know, to pursue that knowledge. It's my favorite thinking that every thinking person in this world, out of the 8.5 billion people, has been curious or is curious about this some point of time in life. I want to know. But for several reasons, that pursuit is never taken up to its logical conclusion. Some take it up to a point and give up. Some people just take 2 steps and say, oh, this is all contradicted to what is fact, because fact is what I know. A few will continue their pursuit. Pursuit to know the truth of self, the truth of Ishvara, and the truth of the Jagat. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye. Very, very few people even make an effort. Even among those who make an effort, many will give up. Yatathanam api siddhanam kaschit mam veti tatvatah. Very few recognize the truth of Ishvara as the truth of himself or herself. Because there is not enough preparation. That adhikaritvam, people with adhikaritvam can either be uttama adhikari, people who are thoroughly prepared. Viveka vairagya samadamadi shatka sampattihi and mumukshutvam is what we define this adhikaritvam as in Tattvabodha. I have mumukshutvam. I've also got myself ready in terms of vairagya, viveka, and conditioning, shamadama, etc. When a person is at that stage, he is said to be uttama adhikari. If a person is really a uttama adhikari, Brahmaji can stop here. There is no further requirement for doing anything. So the question arises, is Ashvalayana a uttama adhikari? And if he is an Uttamadhikari, why is the Upanishad continuing? The information available to us indicates he is an Uttamadhikari. He is supposed to be a Rigveda Acharya. That doesn't necessarily make him Uttamadhikari, but he's obviously studied a lot. And the kind of questions he's asking Brahmaji. Very first verse. I want to know Brahma Vidya, knowing which. What is the first verse? Adhihi Bhagavo Brahma Vidyam Varishtham Sada Sadbihi Sebyamanam Nigurnam Yaya Achirat Sarva Papam Vyapohya Parat Param Purusham Yati Vidwan. One gains the state of being Purusha. So he knows that much. Framing this question like that. One would assume that he is an Uttamadhikari and therefore by now should have become a jnani. But Brahmaji continues. Upanishads are designed as a dialogue between the student and the teacher. But it is really meant for every sadhaka. Anybody who has this intense desire to know and who has adequate punya to have a guru who will unfold this for them. It is meant for them. Therefore, Brahmaji, even though Ashwarayana may be Uttamadhikari, does not stop with that. Nachiketa in Kathopanishad, in introducing himself, says, I may not be the top, but I'm certainly not the bottom. I am approaching the top. We can safely say that about all of us. We may or may not be Uttamadhikari, but we are at least Madhyamadhikari. The rest are non-adhikaris. No preparedness. At least not yet. Maybe time will come when they will find out that there is something to know. So for the benefit of all the sadhakas, he will continue this. Because earlier he finished more or less with saying, Sarva bhutastam atmanam, sarva bhutani chatmani, sampashyan. Having clearly seen this, understood this. It's like saying, everybody says in India, at least in Tamil Nadu, they will say, Irupadalam irevane. But understanding is not there. Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Yati. Right? That's the end of the Upadesha. But for purposes of those who have not yet been able to assimilate this knowledge, he introduces a wonderful visualization. We require fire for everything. Not only for cooking, but also for every yajna. Because fire is like our courier, one who takes our messages to whichever devata you want to send it to. How do you start a fire? These days, you just take a matchbox, strike one, and start a fire. These are called safety matches. Prior to this, some 70, 80, 90 years ago, there was a system called strike anywhere matches. And I heard of that. The phosphorus and other chemicals that are put in the matchbox, one bit is put on the side of the box and one is in the head of the matchstick. So you strike the two, friction, and fire comes up. Earlier, when they first came up with matchsticks, they put all of it in the head of the matchstick. If you see some old Western movies, you will see that fellow taking out the match and striking it anywhere, causing friction and lighting that fire. Before that, how do they light fire? This knowledge of chemical coming together and heat created by friction, lighting a fire. Heat created by friction lights a fire, we knew. So the traditional method of lighting a fire for any yajna, or for any other purpose for the matter, but here specifically the yajna, is by using an instrument called arani. Even now, some traditionalists use it. Also uses the same idea of friction, creating heat. Before that, the Stone Age people, what they did, they took two flint stones and they tick, tick, tick. Again, same. Create a spark. And for that, you light something. That's how the principle on which your lighters work. A flint stone and friction against something. That's prior. Arani is what we're interested in. And Arani had a block of wood. Arani itself comes from the dhatu ru, gatau. You put a stick on the lower block of wood and using a rope, you churn it by putting pressure on the top. As you churn, the stick rotates on the lower block of wood, creating friction. And they have some pieces of small piece of cotton, etc. in that place. And the edge of that starts getting heated, and this cotton catches fire. This is how fire was created. Again, in the traditional system, once the fire was created, after a person has entered grahastha-ashrama, this fire is maintained. He does Agnihotra every day. This fire is never allowed to go out. And the fire, same fire is used finally when the person goes to the cremation ground. Same fire. Only then it's put out. But creating the fire is this method called arani. Using that as an imagery, says, how do you know this? You've studied it so far, all these verses. You have to know. Nanya Pantha Nuktaye. The only way you can do that is like in the arani. You churn and churn and churn till enough heat is produced and fire appears in the cotton that is kept there. That fire to equal to the fire of knowledge. It takes an effort. It is not something that you can do easily. You have to put pressure on top and you keep churning it. Enough to create sufficient friction to produce the heat that's required to cause the fire. So you say, ātmanam aranim kritva. Pranavam rarinim. Jnana nirmathanabhyasat pasham dahati panditaha. That which holds us back, which is the bondage, which we saw already is a notion. There is no bondage. We feel we are bound. Our movements are limited. Our thought process is limited. Our knowledge is limited. We are limited in time. Those sense of limitation, all those have to be eliminated. And that elimination will take place only by knowing that I am not bound. Imagine, suddenly you find yourself, there's nothing before that, suddenly you find yourself in the middle of a large body of water. Playing your hands and legs, trying to keep your head above water, and not knowing what's happening. Your only objective is to keep your head above water. And you look around, all you see is water, water everywhere. And you see many of the heads bopping up and down, all of them trying the same thing, trying to keep the head above water. And then a floating piece of wood comes your way. You desperately hang on to that piece of wood and you get some relief. My God, this is nice. Now I don't have to struggle. But that doesn't last. Before you turn around, you discover that the piece of wood that you thought you were hanging on to happens to be a bear. And then you panic, let go of it, go down again, continue the struggle. And then suddenly the tide goes low and you find a small piece of land with one coconut tree. Ah, what relief! Fantastic. Desperately swim to that piece of land and you find coconut. And somehow you open that coconut and you have sweet water, nectar. Aha, I'm in Swarga. I'm there for a while, eat a little coconut, drink a little coconut water, and then the high tide comes. There goes my Sukhasthanam. Back to the struggle. Martyaloka. again and again and again. And then you find one bearded fellow, white beard, long white beard. He's saying, why are you struggling? So what do you mean why am I struggling? I have to stay above water. I have to stay afloat. But he's not saying, he's not struggling, he's just standing there. Says, no, why do you have to struggle? There is nothing there. So he says, go away. You're wasting my energy. Mirabai says, when I got Guru Charanam, Avasagar sab sukh gaya hai. There is no need for struggle anymore. But he doesn't realize that. Mirabai realized. He continues to struggle. He meets that same white bearded man again. He says, what are you saying? You tell me something, I don't have to struggle. So you don't have to struggle. Why are you struggling? What are you struggling for? Just stand. And suddenly, you stand and you find that you're on firm terra firma. There is no ocean. There is no water. There is no struggle. And then you look around, others are still struggling. False notion of bondage. You didn't do anything. There never was a samsara. That's why it's called samsara sagara. You're always free. You just have to know it. How to know this, Swamiji? You keep saying you just have to know it, but how to know it? Atmanam aranim kritva pranavam cha uttararinim jnana nirmathanabhyasat pasham dahati panditah. Pasham is the rope. A rope which you think binds you. It is like the rope that is tied, a cow is tied to a post. You either have a small rope, so you have a little bit of movement, or you have a long rope, but it's still a rope. That rope, that pasha, what is that pasha? My own pasham. I have not realized that this pasham, all these desires within the Jagat are all non-real. Because whole Jagat is non-real. Whole Jagat is not real. Since there is no real rope, no real pasha, how am I going to get rid of the pasha? Only by knowing that there is no pasha. One who knows this becomes a pandita. Panda means jnanam. In the north, you go to any of these places like Kashi or Hardwar, there are pandas sitting there. Who call themselves pandas, giving the impression they are knowledgeable people. Maybe they're knowledgeable in some rituals and things. But one doesn't get a very positive feeling that they are doing anything for you. They're only doing something to make a living. When we went to Kedarnath, Soon after we checked in the hotel, one fellow came, and his name was a Pandit something or the other. And he said, I will take you, I'll get you the permission to, not this is, sorry, Badrinath. I'll give you, get you the, participate in the Abhishekam. Oh, they charge some money. And then after that, we'll go to the Kunda and do some rituals. I'll do the puja. I said, very good. Then I got talking to him and asked him, what have you studied? How much do you know? And it slowly came out that he's not studied anything. He was a real estate broker. I asked him, in the 6 months, this is close, what do you do? No, sir, I deal in real estate. But he calls himself Pandit something or the other. Pandita is a jnani, somebody who knows. Here especially, Pandita is one who understands the truth. That Pandita, Pasham Dahati. For him, there is no more Pasha. That's why he's a Pandita. There is no bondage. Pasham Dahati. It says Dahati, it's all majoring only. That thing which binds you, Bhasmasat Kurute. Also, the word sounds familiar, no? Jnanagnihi Bhasmasat Kurute. The Agni, the fire, two fingers. That's all. And he was telling me, one of the greatest tabla players in the world ever, Zakir Hussain, even today practices that. Even when he's sitting with people talking, his fingers still going. Abhyasa. What abhyasa? What is it that you need to do again, over and over again? Jnana nirmathana abhyasa. Mathana means churn. That jnanam, Brahmaji is given till the last verse. How do I make it my own? By repeated churning. Repeated Shravanam, repeated Mananam. All the questions that come to one's mind, seek answers to find out how do you reconcile all these that I thought I knew against what now Upanishad is telling me. Churn again and again and again. We have this in the Puranas. When Devas wanted to know ātmatattva, all imagery only. They were told, take this Meru, the mountain, and churn the milky white ocean. And from there you will get āmritattva, amritam. And they said, it's too big, we can't do it alone. So they were told, get into a deal with the Asuras. Asuras also looking for the same thing, but they don't know. You looking for it, you know. Get into a deal with them. And together you churn this milky ocean. Why milky ocean? White often represents jnanam. You churn that knowledge, literally churn it in the head over and over and over again. Jnana nirmathana abhyasat. Lot of things will come up. Some nice, some not so nice. All that is suppressed in the subconscious will all come out. In the unconscious will also come out. These are represented by a lot of negative things that come out in the churning of the ocean. Nice things also come. Kamadhenu will come. Kamadhenu is one that gives you what you want in this loka. Kamadhenu cannot give you moksha. You can't go to Kamadhenu and say, give me moksha. You can go to Kamadhenu and say, Dhenu and say, I've got 1,000 guests. Give me food for all 1,000 people. That will also come. Poison will also come. That can destroy everything. Because whatever is in has to come out before ātmajnānam can be realized. So this mathanam, jnana nirmathanam, churning of the white milky ocean. The last thing to come out is amritam. In the Bangkok airport, there's a big mural showing this image. Because this knowledge actually traveled to all those places. Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, later overwhelmed by other religions which limited this knowledge. Jnana nirmathana abhyasa. The more one does this, the more clarity one gets. Until when should I do this? As long as it takes to do it, to gain the jnana. That's why you will see, when you study the Bhagavad Gita, it is a moksha shastra. It is also yoga shastra. Both preparation and all the good things in this loka and moksha can be got through study of Gita. But not once. Once might give us some insight. But when you do mathanam of the jnanam contained in the Gita, then you will come to a state where one is ready to receive and assimilate the knowledge. And the best time to start, of course, when you're a child. Not all of us have had the same benefit. We have a few children who do this. They don't understand anything. They don't understand the words of, but they know the thing by heart. Enough to start with. Slowly, words, meanings will start emerging. Jnana nirmatana abhyasat. And then the word meaning will give way to lakshyartha as they grow up, as they interact more with the world. It will start revealing the truth. It is already revealing the truth, but we will be in a position to see that. Just like this abhyasa we have to do to light the fire. In the Arani, Atmanam Aranim Kritva. Arani has two parts, the Adhorani and Uttararani, which you put on top of that. And the stick, wooden stick. This Arani is sanctified by mantras because it's going to be used for the fire, is going to be used for various yajnas. So this sanctified piece of wood representing Atma. Now here Atma doesn't mean Paramatma. Atma here is Ahankara, Antakarana. Allowing myself to be the myself that I think I know I am, to be the Adhorani or Arani. It's also called Arani. The whole thing is also called Arani. The Adhorani is also called Arani. Atmanam Aranim Kritva. And what do you use for Uttararani? Pranavam Uttara Cha Uttararanim. Pranava is another name for Omkara. We have seen Om is everything. Om is everything within the 3 periods of time, as well as outside the 3 periods of time. Om is everything within the space we know, but also includes beyond space. Om is everything we know and we don't know. Because Om is what makes knowing itself possible. Our Om shows what is known, it also illumines what is not known. Om is the knower. Om is also the object of knowing. It is also knowing. Om is everything. If Om is everything, and we also say Brahman is everything, same definitions, that Om is that Brahman. Now, keeping that Om Pranava as the Uttararani and Atma, Swa-Atma as Adhorani, you start churning. Churn, 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 churn. Like I said, a lot of things will appear in your head. Some contradictory, some difficult to understand. Let them come. Continue to churn. Questions will come. Continue to churn. And eventually, like Amritam, that knowledge will emerge and burn the bondage. Burn the bondage means recognition of there being no bondage. Atmanam aranim kritva. Pranavam chottaraaranim. This jnanam is churned. Jnana nirmathana abhyasat. Tikakara says, Jnana nirmathana is sarvatmaka ahameva iti. Sarvabhutastamatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani. Tasya abhyasat. That's why you have so many texts. We've studied Nirvana Shatkam. What does he do? I'm not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. I am only consciousness. Chaitanya Swarupa. Chinmayam. That knowledge will start appearing. So he says, Sarvatmaka ahameva iti. Tasya abhyasat. What happens with that? Tasya abhyasat utpannena aham brahmasmi iti idam nishchayam. That clarity that emerges, oh, all this I thought I was making a mistake. What Upanishad tells me makes absolute sense. That pasham, bandhana rupam ajnanam. There is no bandhanam, but because of ajnanam, there is as though bandhanam. And what is burnt? That individuality which we assign to ourselves because we are in the sharira. Aham. Aham etat sharirameva. I am only this sharira. This is mine. Aham is this sharira, and everything else is either mine or not mine. Aham and mama. That is what is burnt. That is the passion. Where does the passion come from? Only from the aham and mama. It is mine, therefore attachment. Or I want it to be mine, therefore attachment. Or I want to run away from this, therefore detachment. Pasham dahati. This notion is what is destroyed. So he gives us this beautiful imagery. Atmanam aranim kritva. So here is chintayitva. Taking the imagery and compared with the real and saying, I have to repeatedly understand the nature of I. Why repeatedly? abhyasat. Because my notion of what I is so strong that I want anything that validates my own conclusion, my own theory about what I am. I accept it without vichara. What Upanishad is telling us is do vichara. Without prejudices, without preconceived notions, which will happen only through repeated mathanam. Let that knowledge be churned over and over and over again. I have so many biases filling my head, particularly conclusions that I have drawn myself. And because it's my conclusion, I'm not willing to give it up. It is my conclusion. And if somebody points out a flaw in that, all I'm trying to do is think of a counter to the flaw rather than examine the flaw itself. Because my conclusion, I want to protect. Sometimes I used to get quite carried away. When Upanishads give unequivocal definitions, ekameva advitiya brahman, tattvamasi. How can anybody draw another conclusion and yet say, I accept as a pramana? And not only draw a conclusion, but then find a way of trying to defend it. Not enough vichara. And that my conclusion becomes itself a hindrance to vichara. It doesn't allow the person to examine what Shastra says without trying to find how Shastra reinforces my conclusion. But Swami G was telling us a sentence like tattvamasi. The dualist, not the dualist. Earlier, there used to be these duels happening. That D-U-E-L-S. Everything is settled with a dual. Here, a dual, D-U-A-L-S. One who is a Dvaitan, and everybody other than one who understands this is a Dvaitan in one form or the other. There are arguments which says it is not tattvamasi, it is ātmatattva. Ātmatattva, even my Kaviraj in my kitchen knows. Why should I go to Upanishad to say ātmatattva? Why should Upanishad say ātmatattva? But they insist it is ātmatattva. Desperate, trying to find a validation for a conclusion that you have drawn, because it's my conclusion. I am different from Ishvara. I don't need Upanishad to tell me that. Only if I'm not different, Upanishad has to tell me you're not different, and then tell me how I'm not different. And that will not happen unless I go studying this with an open mind. But I've already gone there with my own pre-drawn conclusion. It's not possible. Even if I go with an open mind, it's not easy. Therefore, you need so many different things. Therefore, you need this kind of imagery. Jnana nirmathana abhyasat vasham dahati. Only then can one be called a pandita, a jnani. After that mathanam. Not just shravanam. Shravanam is only the anga. Others have to follow this anga, the angi. But I have to do that mananam. Because if I do only shravanam and leave it at that, I don't do enough mathanam, vichara, I will reject whatever the shravanam is telling me. I have to therefore repeatedly study, contemplate upon, and eventually get into a state of nididhyasana on Akshara Brahman, on meditation on the meditator. I am the meditator. I am the meditated. This requires all these steps. Atmanam aranim krutva pranavam cha uttararinam jnana nirmathana abhyasat vasham dahati pandita. This is one imagery. But to explain this, our Shastra has many prakriya, many methods. One method will not clearly bring us to a state. This is called Kaivalya Upanishad. Kevalasya bhavam is Kaivalyam. Meaning this is enough. Up to now, what we've studied is enough to know there is something to know. How to know it now? We will continue to study, see what prakriya this Upanishad uses, and try to understand this. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva